You might be wondering, is this that channel that talks about poor people? Well, this channel looks at various media to analyze how various factors impact characters and whether or not it's in any way realistic. So, yeah, poor people. Because in all honesty, media gets it wrong. A lot.
If they'd rather die, then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population.
This video is going to focus on Kim Wexler's character during Season 5 of Better Call Saul. There are 3 videos I've done previously breaking down her character that I may or may not redo because of audio issues. Also, this will have spoilers, so I guess I have to point that out.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
To summarize, in the first video, I started by pointing out that we know relatively little about her background, and the few things we do learn are slipped into conversation or items that we have to read between the lines, such as owing HHM for law school, originating from a small town, and living frugally. One of the ways this is used in the first 4 seasons is through the use of lighting, as she is more willing to be herself when she is obscured by shadows and dark light. Kim keeps a pretty clear boundary between her public image versus her private self, still believing that working within the system is how one becomes successful. In the second video, I discussed how her fashion, vehicle, and environment reflect growing up in poverty. Her lifestyle is simple, her wardrobe is mostly muted colors, and her home contains more generic, nondescript decorations and appliances. In general, her possessions are simply things, her office is just a workplace, and her non-attachment reflects a childhood of insecurity. In the third video, I heavily focused on how Kim's character always has a failsafe. There is never just plan A and plan B, but rather there are several failsafes in place because of how little she has been able to rely on the people in her life. She has the mindset that she has to do everything because delegating tasks feels foreign. In doing so, she will not owe anyone, but this comes at the cost of putting herself at risk. So much so, in fact, that she falls asleep at the wheel but is lucky enough to survive the crash. With that, like, subscribe, whatever, grab a snack or beverage of your choice, and with the help of the Data Bunny of Science, I'll discuss how Kim's story is a loose adaptation of the fish out of water trope that focuses on the differences in socioeconomic class and how it affects her character development in Season 5. She grew up poor, but no longer looks or acts in a stereotypical poor way. Conversely, she doesn't fit in with the wealthy either. She straddles between these two worlds while belonging to neither. It is stressful and infuriating. Kim is able to see the big picture and understand how certain decisions can impact the future. At the end of Season 4, Jimmy is able to get his law license back. While I've read different opinions on Kim's reaction in this scene, I'd like to add another. In the first hearing for his law license, Jimmy is honest and is rejected, being told that he was, quote, insincere, whereas the second time when he is lying and is insincere, he gets his license back. For Kim, I think this was a point where she realized that playing by the rules or being honest is pointless, because Jimmy didn't get his license back from being honest. He got it because he recognized how to work a system that looks down on the poor and alienates those who don't fit in. Up until this point, Kim has been trying to stay within the confines of the law, aside from a few instances. I think this situation really highlighted for her that the law is not as just as it is supposed to be, and that if someone is going to get justice, they basically have to figure it out for themselves and hope that luck is on their side. One theme that continues to carry over into Season 5 is that her possessions and physical house are just things, at least when they are specifically hers. She certainly doesn't have an attachment to objects that do not hold sentimental value. When she leaves her job at Schweikert and Coakley, she is shown focusing on a small picture that has a note from one of her pro bono clients. The rest of her office has few, if any, personal effects. Even when she leaves, the only thing she takes with her is the tequila topper. Kim doesn't box up her diplomas or anything else and lets her assistant do it instead. I think this is symbolic that she has learned to delegate tasks so that she can focus on what is important to her. Even in her gifts to people, they are sentimental and practical. Kim gives him a briefcase with his initials JJM. She is slightly taken aback when he decides not to use his real name for several reasons, and I think one is that she feels her gift might not be as well received since it was personalized with the initials for his real name. However, the JJM is instead now going to represent his motto, Justice Matters Most. There is also a second gift that is a throwback to previous seasons in that she also gives him a thermos with World's Second Best Lawyer, again. It's also used to show Jimmy's sentiment toward his gift, as it's one of the objects he brought back with him from the desert when he went to pick up the money. When Jimmy returns from the desert, Kim asks him if it was worth it, to which he responds to look in the bag. While Kim does see the pile of cash, she also notices that he has the coffee thermos she gave him, which also has a bullet hole now. Upon seeing this, she is more concerned that he escaped death rather than he received a large payout for such a high risk. But Kim, being Kim, knows that she needs to be prepared for what is going to happen in the future. Kim is not as concerned with money as Jimmy is, at least not in the same way. When she leaves her job at the firm, Jimmy asks her why and if it was possibly because their plan was found out. Kim says, quote, "It just felt right. I kept pushing Mesa Verde away to do pro bono work, and then when you were gone, I don't know what happened. I mean, I thought you were dead, so that was, all of it helped me to see what was important and what isn't," end quote. He tells her that she's just throwing this all away, and she disagrees because she achieved all of these things. And while Mesa Verde was a good solid paycheck, it didn't make her happy. Kim was able to achieve all of these things before, she can do it again. Jimmy recommends that she call Rich and take a few days to think it over. For Jimmy, Kim is the grounded, responsible person usually. If her role in the relationship is changing, what does that mean for him? She says, quote, "I already told Rich and had a nice long conversation with Paige, and then spent the afternoon in court with pro bono clients without Mesa Verde hanging over my head. Best afternoon I've had in a long time," end quote. In previous seasons, Kim talked about how Atticus Finch is a character that she wanted to be. While being a corporate lawyer for a bank certainly got her foot in the door and the chance to leave HHM, it never seemed to be her dream. As she has progressed throughout her career, she is able to identify which goals were worth pursuing and which were not. It's also visible that Kim is increasingly annoyed with Kevin as season 5 progresses, which we'll circle back to, as they say in Corporette. But there's another interesting shift in their conversation. When Jimmy points out that pro bono means no money and wants to know her plan, she says, quote, "I don't know, but I'll figure it out." Season 5 is Kim's breaking point because for so long she has been trying to move up by following the rules and always having a plan in place, yet she was screwed over and demoted to a smaller office before ending up in the basement with the files and interns. Being honest or hardworking wasn't really valued. As mentioned already, money is more of an afterthought for Kim as she seems to genuinely want to help people. Quote, "I'm leaving something that makes zero difference in the world to help people who are actually in need," end quote. As Jimmy continues to try and talk her out of it, she responds, "When you decided to be Saul Goodman, I stood by you. I didn't get it, but I stood by and I'm not changing my identity. I'm leaving a job." Kim knows there are always other attorney offices. Not to mention, Jimmy also has that bag of cash, so it's not as if they have absolutely nothing. She knows that to truly help those screwed over by the justice system, she needs to embrace the gray area at times. This lack of attachment is also apparent in her home. The condo or apartment that Jimmy and Kim share is nicer than the previous one and has some upgraded appliances, but not stainless steel. The decorations are a slight upgrade with more uniformity and neutral colors. They have put some money into having a better home, but overall it's not flashy or over the top. In episode 2, Jimmy takes Kim to an open house. It has a lot of windows, stainless steel appliances, a lot of white. Just a side note, I've never understood the obsession with a house's interior being stark white everywhere. It feels like a hospital. When Jimmy hints that it could be a great place for the two of them, she doesn't agree or disagree, just says maybe.
Should we trust him, your neutralness? All I know is my gut says maybe.
When Kim is trying to get Mr. Acker to take the buyout and leave his property, she is confrontational at first and exasperated with Mesa Verde work in general. However, after the initial meeting, she has time to think on the issue and then returns later that evening. I'll go back to that initial meeting, but for now I want to look at what happens when Kim goes back later, breaking through the fence to show him properties he could purchase. For her, it might just be a house and she's adjusted to not being attached to anything. However, she's able to see this sense of individualism, if you will, in Mr. Acker. She tells him, quote, "Whatever you choose, you'll own it and the land forever." When she sees that he is not being receptive to her solution, she then adds, quote, "You're right, I can't pretend to understand what you're going through. I've never owned a house. My family didn't either. My family didn't own anything. When I was little, my mother used to shake me awake in the middle of the night yelling it's time to go. She was always one step ahead of the landlord. I'd throw my things in a cardboard box and run outside in my pajamas and bare feet. Sometimes it was so cold my toes turned blue," end quote. That insecurity in childhood is harmful. In 2008, the recession affected people's mortgages, and in 2022, we have overbearing landlords that once again threaten the average person's ability to survive in a safe, clean environment. Even though Kim bared this piece of her background in the shadows of the dark evening, Mr. Acker just says, quote, "You'll say anything to get what you want, won't you?" End quote. Kim's thinking is that if he owns something fully, it will be enough to entice him to move. She's had to adjust her goals and understands that there may be other ways to get there, so it's frustrating that Acker is stubborn and is not willing to leave on his own accord. With Kim's sentimentality and practicality, it's not out of character that her marriage to Jimmy is handled as more of a business matter. It may not have been the wedding she dreamed of at 12, as Jimmy states, but guessing by her childhood, she was probably more concerned with food and home. Tradition and others' perceptions of her are an afterthought, but we learn a small piece of trivia in that Kim has no middle name.
They've never given me a name. I've been around since show 1 and I still don't have a name.
One of the biggest changes I noticed in season 5 is that Kim's wardrobe has much less blue and gray. In fact, her outfits start to be more black and white. In the articles linked below, in the professional world, black suits are seen as more dominant than blue, while blues are seen as better colors to impress a boss with. When it comes to women, however, they actually note that women are often not advised to wear black, especially as a young professional, because it's considered too aggressive. Kim also wears slightly taller heels and stilettos. I would argue that this difference signifies how much Kim has grown in the professional world, especially towards richer clients. In the previous 4 seasons, Kim goes to meet with a client in the oil fields wearing jeans and boots, which is practical. This made her more relatable to a potential client that she was able to win over. However, when she goes to meet Mr. Acker, even though the desert terrain is similar, she is wearing a skirt suit and stilettos. It's possible their initial meeting might have gone differently if Kim had dressed more casually, but most likely would have the same results. Circling back to the storyline between Mr. Acker and Kevin, this plot encompasses several competing differences, such as city versus country, rich versus poor, young versus old, tradition versus change. At the same time, these two men are two stubborn sides of the same coin, and Kim is stuck between their egos, working to find a compromise as neither is willing to back down. When Kim approaches Mr. Acker the first time, he says, quote, "You come out here with your fancy suit and bring your minions with you, driving them black shiny cars, and you think you can talk to me like I'm brain damaged," end quote. This is one of the first times she realizes that even though she has seen herself as someone that grew up poor, worked their way out of poverty, and achieved several professional goals, other people only see the end result. He assumes that she has no idea what it's like to struggle to own her own home because Kim is one of them. Kim is used to being the outsider. At HHM, she wasn't partner and wasn't able to fit into that clique. Once she moved up from the mailroom, she started to lose that camaraderie she once had with them. I don't think Kim was expecting this response from him because she has never felt that she was one of them. Another thing to point out during this interaction, Kim looks him in the eye and doesn't back down or even flinch. At one point, Acker yells in her face that the big bank isn't going to build the call center where his home is, but she stands her ground. We know from her childhood that she has had to deal with her mom drunkenly yelling at her, so she's had practice in this type of situation. This scene was particularly tough for me to watch without getting angry. Speaking from my own experience, I learned from a young age how to handle aggressive people, but not how to take genuine compliments or support. When someone is confrontational, you can't feed into their emotions. You need to stand your ground, and sometimes the less said, the better. At one time, the militaristic approach or demanding to see a manager would resolve issues, but now it is a meme as we recognize it for what it is. In Acker's case, it certainly won't help, as the bank has made arrangements for the sheriff to forcefully remove him from the property within a few days. Kim has had enough experience in these types of situations to recognize that he isn't going to listen, and he's made up his mind. When she goes to leave, he says, quote, "You're one of those people that give a little money to charity every month so you can make up for all the bad that you've done. You go to soup kitchens once a year on Thanksgiving. That makes you feel a whole lot better about yourself. Makes you feel like one of the best rich people. I don't know how in the world you sleep at night," end quote. I've run into people older than me who feel they've worked harder than me to get where they are. In some cases, yes, but many times I've worked through far more than they have, but it's not my job, nor my obligation, to share my life story with them. So it was cathartic to hear Kim yell back at him to put on your big boy pants and face reality. No one is mistreating you here. We were trying to meet you halfway. Well, that's over. The $18,000 is off the table. You come to your senses tomorrow and you get $10,000. And you know what happens after that? The sheriff comes and kicks you out of here and you get nothing. Why should you get to drag this out for 7 months when all of your neighbors, every single one of them, played by the rules? And do you think you're special? A contract means something. It's the law and it's enforceable. Deal with it." End quote. Even though Acker visibly gets angrier and angrier, Kim says this in his face the entire time, mirroring a similar tone to him. She brings up the neighbors and playing by the rules because that has been her role in the past. She follows the rules. She understands that the community is just as important as the individual. While we don't know much about Acker's history, it's possible that this was his breaking point. After years of playing by the rules, it ends with him being given a cruddy offer for his land because of a contract that was signed years prior, and he's had enough. As far as Kevin, when Jimmy hires a private investigator to try and dig up any dirt for blackmail, he doesn't find anything. Kevin got the business from his father and grew up with the message of not backing down from a fight. When Kim realizes that Acker is not going to budge, she offers Kevin another option that is financially cheaper so business can continue as usual, while Acker can keep his home. Even though Kevin is willing to listen, he doesn't care and stubbornly sticks to his original plan. He also sees Kim differently than Acker. To him, Kim is just another cog in the machine, albeit a valuable one, but essentially she is just another employee to carry out the tasks that he delegates. Kim is already mentally checked out on the Mesa Verde account, and this is another item to push her closer to her breaking point. She is frustrated that both sides are this stubborn and unwilling to consider the alternate options that she worked to provide for them. As Jimmy works to make things difficult for Kevin and his business, Kim tells Jimmy that they are willing to pay out a large sum to Acker to have him move, as in millions. For Kim, this is a reasonable ending, and all the back and forth has taken her from being able to do all the pro bono work that she looks forward to. However, Jimmy goes ahead with copyright and defamation cases when they meet in the boardroom. In short, it's chaos, and even though Kim tells Kevin not to say anything, he ignores her and keeps talking. Even though she advises Kevin not to do anything, he ignores her and tries to get a handshake deal with Jimmy. Rich and Kim do the professional thing and meet with Kevin the next day to discuss face-to-face. Kim gives a professional apology, assuring him it won't happen again. The entire time, Kevin is stoic and looks angry. Even Paige chimes in, explaining that out of everything that's happened, this has been the only setback. Kim winces slightly when Kevin says, quote, "Well, Kim, you dropped the ball, that's for sure. And with all our smarts and a whole office full of associates and fancy degrees, you get rolled over by, well, you know what happened. I expected more," end quote. It shows how disconnected Kevin is from reality, and insulting Kim's skills is just petty, though this is a common tactic among people who care about end results and not the process. He even goes out of his way to be more unprofessional, ignorant, and sexist by telling Kim that she could do better than Jimmy. Rich seems to be the only boss that sees Kim as an equal. He doesn't talk down to her and genuinely listens to her. When Kim turns around to confront Kevin, he doesn't tell her to stop or interrupt her at any point. Schweikert respects her and remains in the background as Kim tells Kevin that he straight up ignored the advice of his lawyers. When Kevin responds, "Oh, so this is my fault?" she tells him, quote, "We said Mesa Verde should reconsider the site for the call center. You declined. We advised you to keep the purchase lot as an investment. You declined. And we advised you to leave the meeting when it became apparent that the other side was negotiating in bad faith. You declined. At every point, we gave you the best guidance we could, and at every point you chose to go your own way. We are your attorneys, and it is our job to advise you. The decisions will always be yours, but if you continue to ignore us, then this is the wrong relationship. And Kevin, I have to tell you, whoever represents you in the future, I hope you're going to listen to them a little bit better," end quote. Kevin doesn't apologize, but just says, "Well, see you Thursday then." This is what professional burnout looks like. It's not an overnight process, it's a constant buildup of situations like this, where Kim doesn't care if she burns it to the ground. People like Kevin need to hear things like this, because for so long, everyone has just put up with it. Kim is tired of other people thinking that they know what she should do better than she does, and is annoyed when people continually view her as someone she's not. When Kim sees Jimmy after the lawyer meeting, she is angry that he didn't share his plan with her. While Jimmy is excitedly saying that everyone wins because the photographer will get compensation, Acker can keep his house, and Kevin gets the call center, Kim tells him that she didn't get what she wanted because she can't trust him and she was on the receiving end. Jimmy tries to say it was her plan and she yells back, quote, F you, you know what? I can't do this anymore. You turned you and me versus the bank into you versus me. And it's not just this, it's the same thing all over again. When he tries to rationalize that not telling her was protecting her so she would have plausible deniability, she doesn't buy it. Jimmy is her support system. She doesn't appear to have contact with her family or have many friends. One of the things I can't seem to find many articles on is how one's social circle changes negatively when their socioeconomic status moves upward. What I mean is that when I was poor, there were more people around that would be willing to share food, help with car repairs, pay utility, and even celebrate holidays. As I started to make steps to escape, the community started to disappear. Suddenly those that had been willing to help me in the past would say things like, "You have plenty of money, you don't need any help," or they would start asking me for more financial help and forgetting to pay me back more often. I was called uppity, spoiled, too good to hang out with them. My financial struggles weren't resolved overnight because my pay went up. At the same time, those who were better off economically than I was didn't see me as an equal, and I couldn't afford to do all the activities that they enjoyed. By not belonging in either group, it made it far more difficult to trust people, so I understand why Kim would be hurt at Jimmy's betrayal. However, I don't think getting married to obtain spousal immunity is the best option. At the end of season 5, Jimmy and Kim are in a hotel to try and escape Lalo, and when Jimmy is given reassurance that they are safe enough to go home, they are both relieved. Jimmy is willing to go back home, while Kim would rather stay and order room service since they paid for the room. During their meal, she informs Jimmy about Howard advising her that Jimmy is unstable and she should leave him. Much like Jimmy, Howard couldn't understand why Kim would leave her job at Schweikert and Coakley. Kim tells Jimmy, quote, "You know why Hamlin told me all this? It was for my own good. Like I'm just waiting for him to ride up on his white horse. It's all about him. It's always all about him. That guy is in love with himself. He needed to be taken down a peg. So what's next? You went after his car, his reputation. I think maybe the next thing is his hair, right?" End quote. They go over some pranks such as putting Nair in his shampoo, and then Kim changes the tone by suggesting that they should frame him for something terrible. By doing so, it would push the class action suit with Sandpiper to be resolved, leaving them with 20% of the common fund, roughly $2 million. Kim would hire a few different people, then rent out a small pro bono practice by the court to, quote, "give regular people the kind of representation that only millionaires get." Jimmy is hesitant to frame Howard because it would have to be unforgivable, something they can't come back from, quote, "At the end of it, he might not be able to practice law again. He doesn't deserve that, and who knows if we could pull it off." Kimmy's response to him is that, quote, "We're talking about a career setback for one lawyer." Jimmy doesn't think that she would be okay with this, but her smirk hints at the possibility that she might be more ruthless than Jimmy. To Kim, this would only be a setback for Howard, because she has seen how the system works. When Jimmy was getting his law license back, he had to be insincere and dishonest. She watched Howard schmooze with clients and work to build HHM back up, so getting his law license would not be near as difficult as it was for Jimmy. Also, Howard has more connections with judges and other lawyers. Kim watched as Howard and Chuck looked down on both of them as they worked their way up from mailroom employees to attorneys. She has little reason to trust Howard because he doesn't respect her as an equal even when she worked in their firm. Throughout the show, she's watched how consequences affect people differently. Even after the situation with Mr. Acker, Kevin still has control of the bank and a location for their call center, so really no setback. When Chuck continually worked to sabotage Jimmy's career, little to nothing happened to Chuck. So what if they go through with this plan of attacking Howard's character? Why would he be facing any serious consequences either? The Chucks and Kevins of the world will usually find a way to bounce back, but the poor and marginalized will not. Kim's character by the end of season 5 makes sense. She's ready to bring the system down, and who doesn't want a little revenge here and there when you've been screwed over? There's a lot I didn't fit in, but I wanted to focus on what I felt contributed most to the ending. Thanks for making it this far. Till next time.